Tri-Waco, the Greater Waco Chamber of Commerce's annual Olympic and Sprint Distance Triathlon will begin at 6:30 a.m. on Sunday, July 9th at Indian Spring Park. Over 900 participants are expected for this event. The race starts with a point-to-point open water swim in the Brazos River, followed by a flat and fast bike ride on the spectator-friendly roads near the river, and finishes with a run along the Brazos River through Cameron Park, finishing on the famous suspension bridge. Tri-Waco will again include relay options, as well as the aqua bike races. Online registration is open through Friday, July 7th, 2023 at triwaco.org. The Tri-Waco Triathlon is presented by Bicycle World. Again, online registration is open through Friday, July 7th, 2023 at triwaco.org.
Welcome to Purpose-Driven Sobriety. Thank you for joining the Purpose-Driven Sobriety podcast. My name is Christine, and I am an alcoholic. And so today, I have Jennifer back, my fur. So let me give you just a quick rundown. Jennifer, which episode were you on? Was it six?
Four.
Was it 4? Okay. So go back to episode 4 and you can hear Jennifer's story. But I have known Jennifer since before I got sober. Mm-hmm. We officed in the same building together, and I know we're on video this time. We officed in the same building together, and so she had gotten sober, and so she was able to kind of witness some of my little shenanigans. But you had grace, and you never called me on it, or anyway. So then when you
hid from me for
I did.
You duck and cover.
I would see Jennifer coming down the hall, and it would be like, okay, go the opposite direction.
Yeah. But I was just barely sober.
Yeah, because now I've got 11 years, and you've got how long?
15.
15, yeah. Right. Mm-hmm. So we that's amazing. Congratulations.
Thank you, and you too.
And so when I did get sober, we run in the same crowds now, and she offices in the room exactly next to mine, the executive suite next to mine.
Good juju in that room.
I know that we're blessed. So we have each other, and so we're gonna try something new, and I don't know what's gonna happen. So that should be fun. But my thought process was a purpose-driven conversation about sobriety, and what I did was I have topics in the handy dandy jar here that we're gonna just pick a topic, and we're gonna see what happens.
That's so like
so that
you.
should be a major shit show right there. So there's no way to decorate that pretty.
I know. No way to prepare it.
No way to prepare. But you know what? These are all the topics, and it's not even just that an alcoholic addict would only have to deal with. This is just life shit that all of us deal with, and so. What I wanted to do was, because we argued over who would pick first and all of this.
And the topics that were put in there.
I did control that.
Yeah.
But since you're my guest, I'll let you go first. But so we're just going to pick a topic and just kind of discuss it and see what happens. So in the meantime, like I said, thank you so much for sharing and sponsoring this episode. You can. We also have. I've yet to plug the Purpose-Driven Sobriety merch, which this is a nonprofit venture. This is something that in my life God is doing, and it's just going to be fun to see what happens with it. But you can go to purposedrivensobriety.com. There are T-shirts. There's a profit of $5 made on every single shirt, which I put right back into the production of this show. So I just paid the studio for another show because we sold 10 T-shirts. So. Check that out if you
and they're way cool.
If you feel that's right. Yeah. If you feel led to support, I would be very grateful. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, I'm going to keep asking you for money to pay for this. So you might as well, because that was the deal that I had with God, dude. Yep. I mean, it was because I know me well enough that I will try to take credit for this, and make it about me. And if I didn't pay for a single thing, I can't rightly do that. So that's where that came from. So without further ado, let's see what happens with this thing. And I'm going to have you, I'm not going to have you close your eyes or anything.
Okay.
But you can
I got to move the mic.
Yeah.
Okay.
So grab a topic and let's go.
Oh. Okay. Well, first of all, I'm Jennifer. I'm a grateful alcoholic.
Hey,
yeah. Hey, y'all. Fear.
Oh, I hate that one. Put that one back in and let's try again. We do have that luxury.
Oh my gosh, fear.
Look at the chills I just got.
It's like it's the basic thread that just permeated every part of my life. And I can let it get away with me, and I can get crazy over it. But I didn't know that I was so fearful. When I got sober, I had, I was scared.
You never would have called it fear.
Yeah.
Here's what I learned. Early on. Every single, I think it's like every single negative emotion is born.
Can be.
From fear.
Yeah. And I just heard something recently that anger and fear are best friends. And so I didn't know I was angry either, but that's a different topic. But
it's in there, don't worry.
But yeah, the fear part, somebody, I think it's probably my sponsor who really drilled in me that you're basically afraid of two things. One, something being taken away from you, or fear of not getting what you want. And so like those are the two basic fears. So whenever I like feel that button pushed in me, like I'm irritated, or someone says something that just hits my gut and I want to react, I've learned over the years to ask myself those two questions. What is it I'm afraid of? I'm afraid of losing something. What is it? Or I'm afraid of not getting what I want. And just the recognition of that sometimes is really powerful, and I can release it a lot faster than I used to. But I was afraid of my shadow. I was afraid of everything. It would just ate away at my relationships, because then I just started to control everything around me, or manipulate everything around me so that I wouldn't feel bad, so I didn't feel the feeling. And also, it really fueled my drinking. I mean, if I was afraid, boy, that was my liquid confidence, right? I mean, I could feel better. I could feel more confident. I could, do whatever. It gave me anger to fight back. It gave me courage.
Yes.
All of those things. So, even though fear is the basic component of my alcoholism, self-centered fear, that the alcohol helped to alleviate that so much. So when it got taken away, when I couldn't do it anymore,
it's terrifying.
Oh my gosh, that's all I was just one fear ball, and I was just oozing with it, So, and then the resentment was on top of that. See, if I have a resentment now, I know it's not really about anger. It's usually about fear.
Right.
So,
well, and I can remember not being able to, when I first got sober, not being able to, because I was told that too, and it's like, but I'm not sure what I'm afraid of. So that's why in recovery, working a recovery program where it's not just you, because self cannot cure self. Self cannot make self better. Self got you where you are.
Oh, yeah.
But I can remember just thinking, okay, well, if it's fear, I don't. So that's where having that person, that sponsor to call and go, okay, here's what I'm feeling. What does this mean? Because I was so,
what is that?
What's the word I'm looking for? I didn't know what feelings meant, because I'd killed them for so long.
Yeah.
With substance.
I had trouble identifying my feelings too. And I had been in therapy for years with so many different people, and I'd gone to treatment and, worked on depression and all of those things. But I really didn't know when I was feeling scared or when I was feeling angry or lonely.
Well,
you
and
know?
it went even further
Yeah.
than that with me, because even I would even drink when I was most joyful.
Oh yeah.
So it's that, I don't know why it's just like pounding in my head right now. You know the scene in the Grinch Stole Christmas,
Yeah.
where he's holding on to that or no he's got the sunlight of he's got what I say is the sunlight of the Spirit shining on him, and he starts to cry and he's like, what is
that?
this?
Yeah.
And his feelings,
Yeah.
and it's like that's how I felt.
Yeah.
Ew.
Raw.
I don't want
Just-
those, because I need those to just go away, because I didn't know how to process them. I didn't know what to do with them.
Right.
And it physically hurt.
Yeah, and I didn't want to acknowledge them when I had them.
No.
A lot of times I would call my sponsor and I would say, blah, 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 they're doing this. And well, what's the feeling? What is the fear? Da, 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 and I would tell her, and she was like, okay, well, sit with that. And I was like, what? Sit with it? I got to get rid of it,
Right?
like now.
How do we make it go away, make it better now?
Yeah. And so sitting with it was a new thing for me, that I could be okay, that I could feel okay in my own skin, feeling the feeling that I was having.
Oh, that's gross.
It was.
It's
and it
gross.
was.
Well, and I got to tell you, let's pause for a second with that. It's I know that this is purpose-driven sobriety, and we talk a lot about addiction and stuff like that. But to try to, those feelings, I'm feeling to try to get rid of those, you can go shopping. You can, there are some people who use sex. There's some people who use all kinds of different things, obsessively to try to not feel.
Sugar.
And that's what we're talking about.
Ice cream.
There you go. And trying to, I remember when I first got sober, I think Eric, my daughter had made me a pair of earrings or something. I'm like, how do you do that? And so she made a pair in front of me, and honey child, I stayed up until all hours of the night. I made enough earrings to outfit the entire city, just because. And it was, and Rick, my husband, actually called my sponsor and was like, she's off the deep end.
Right.
And my sponsor's like, leave her the hell alone.
Yeah.
She's trying to sit with this, but she has to do something. And as long as she's not drinking right now, because that's what was killing me, or tried to kill me. I tried to kill me, make no mistake about it, but alcohol. But as long as she's doing something and not hurting anybody right now, just let her process through this.
And I smoked, I didn't quit till 2 years
Me
after.
too.
And
Me
so
too.
that helped me so much.
Yeah.
And so I know, I get it, the dangers of, and no, it's not great to smoke and blah, blah, blah. So kids don't smoke.
Right, don't
But
email us.
at the same time, I don't know how I could have processed everything unless I had. And if you'd asked me to quit smoking and quit drinking at the same time, I couldn't have
we're
done
done.
it. No.
We're done.
So yeah.
Wow.
Fear.
Yeah, that I and so now 11 years, 15 years later, I mean, hopefully we've done so you've perfected when you're in fear right now, recognizing when you
Perfected. No. Because it
Hardly.
always starts with what they did. It's like, he's irritating me, or they, they're, oh my gosh.
That's what I was about to tell you. I was listening to a recovery speaker in my car the other day, and he said, I had a sponsor at one time where you would call him and his voicemail would pick up, and the message said, it's not them, it's not them, it's not them. Leave a message.
So
I was like, oh crap.
So I have a story about that. So I remember spinning off the rails, and it was back when I did smoke, but it was early on in my sobriety. And I remember I was at work at school, and I was on my lunch break, and I was just spinning out of control. I mean, I was months sober, and so I remember calling my sponsor, and I said, blah, 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 and I would just diarrhea of the mouth. I mean, just explode, and couldn't stop long enough for her to, say something. And so finally she's like, okay, here's what you're going to do. Are you in a parking spot? Yes, ma'am. Get a piece of paper, a white piece of paper, and a pen. I was like, okay. And I'm thinking, what is she going to have me
She's
do?
She's going to give me something to do. Yeah. Just...
And she said, okay, now I want you to write down every fear you're having.
Ew.
Yeah, I know. I was like, why would I do that? And besides that, I just told you what they were.
Right.
Why do I have to write
Fix
them down?
It,
yeah.
ma'am.
You and I think so much alike.
Fix it, ma'am.
So, yeah. And so I wrote it. I was like, I would have done anything she asked me to do. Anything. Absolutely.
Yeah,
and so I was desperate for relief, and, so I wrote all my fears down, and she said, okay. And I'm thinking she's going to have me read them to her. I'm like, I wrote them down. And she's like, okay, now take that piece of paper. And I was like, okay. She said, and you may want to lean all the way back in your seat in the car so nobody's watching at you, or if that's important to you, just, lean all the way back. So I did. I reclined all the way back. And I'm like, what the hell? What am I doing? I'm like, here's a piece of paper, and I'm leaned all the way back. She goes, now I want you to take that piece of paper and wave it up in the air. And I was like, okay, that's dumb. And we just crossed the dumb line. And
right.
And I'm like, okay. And she said, and I want you to say, God, I'm going to give all of these to you. I wave the white flag and I surrender.
Oh,
right. And so that, I still get goosebumps about that. And what that did for me was so powerful, because I could not, without physically doing that, I don't think I could have surrendered.
See, I would have crumpled it up and eaten it or something. That would have been something she would have told me to do. Now crumple it up. Make sure your seat's back, because if they see you eating paper, they're going to call the other people.
They're going to take you away.
To come get you.
Yeah. So, and it was a relief. And I was like, that was so simple. That was so simple. But yet I didn't, I don't learn my lesson the first time.
Well, I think when you're inside the storm, and that's what, and again, please, if you're listening and you're not an alcoholic addict, this applies to you too, honey. This applies to you too, honey. I'm just telling you, when you're inside the storm, when you're inside of it, you can't see. You can't see. And so it takes someone outside of the storm going, hey, over here. You're doing this, and you can come out here and I can show you, so you need someone to help you step outside of the storm. So no matter if you're an alcoholic addict, if you're not, and you wouldn't have a sponsor, you should have what I say is a spiritual advisor, a spiritual partner, someone that you have given authority to call you on your shit. Sorry for the no, I'm not sorry for the bad word. It's just what it is. Someone to go, hey, come out here. Let's look at this now. Look at, you're being kind of nutso right here. And here, maybe you're in fear. And you're going, oh, crap, I couldn't see that because I was in it.
Well, and I think the most important part of that for me was, and, she would always say to me, I'm not the one. I'm not going to solve all your problems, Jennifer, but I know one who can. Mm-hmm. And that's your higher power,
right?
Who I choose to call God.
So
or
we
Jesus.
need reminding of that.
Yeah, and so it's like someone who was pointing the way back at my higher power. And what that did for me was, it kept me from holding her responsible, and that was the first.
Well, and holding her hostage.
Yeah, and
almost.
Hostage. Yeah, I was going to say that too.
Because you'd be calling. Yeah, we talk about speed dial.
Yeah,
man.
and so it's like, it's not about someone fixing my problems. And that's where, I love therapy and what it can do, but what I was using it for wasn't ever going to work, because I was looking for the answer.
Right.
I would go to therapists and you're new.
Fix me.
You're going to, and the more I told you were going to, and the more you knew, you were going to give me this secret. And that never happened, and the reason, and good, beautiful people, therapists that I went to who had a lot of great things to say, but they didn't have my answer.
Right.
And most of them probably knew that, yeah. So, and I wasn't exactly honest with them.
And to even go deep, and to even go deeper than that, when I don't know. Because I should too. I as well should have an honorary psychology degree with as many that I saw during my time in addiction. But I don't know that I had ever. I didn't connect with them. I didn't, have that connection to where I had given them authority and in recovery, you share with someone who's earned the right to hear what you have to say,
right,
and what you have to share.
There's no motivation, other than to
or
just
ulterior
want,
motives.
I just want you to be sober
I just want you to be okay
and to be happy, joyous, and free. So I think there's that other component of like I can put friends around me who will call me out on my crap. At the same time, they've got to point me back to the answer, the solution.
Right.
And you do that for me over and over again. And my sponsor does that for me. And even my people that I sponsor do that for me. And then I'll find myself talking to them and saying things, I needed to hear that.
Right.
I mean, like, I don't have all the answers either. And so I think it's really important to have a broad love base of people like that, that you can call
regardless whether you're in recovery or not.
Right.
I don't need yes men around me.
Oh, no.
Oh, gosh.
Or people that pity, have pity for me, or, compassion. I mean, compassion's a great thing, but accountability is really more where it's at for me.
And empathy.
And I trust that you know what you're talking about. And I trust that my sponsor knows what she's talking about where that's concerned, so.
Yeah, that empathy. And you and I talked about this the other day, that I've been listening to another speaker that talks a lot about vulnerability, and what that means in anybody's life, let alone in recovery, because that's very, it takes a lot to be vulnerable, to show your guts to somebody.
Well, because you want that person to think the best. I used to play that game in my head with my sponsor too, so like, even though I trusted her and I knew there was some hard things that I had to tell her and fess up to that I didn't want to,
right?
Because I was so afraid of losing her. And, if she really knew me,
judgment,
would she love me still? Would she be there for me? And I just remember her time after time, or, one specific time where I was like, I really, screwed up here and I messed up. And this was in sobriety, and I'm like, okay, I have to tell you what's really going on. And she's like, I can relate to you. And she told me her stuff,
right.
And I was like, she didn't judge me. She related to me.
Man, and that is a connection that just most, just in our everyday life, I don't know that I'd ever made a connection like that with another human being.
No.
To where I was not afraid of judgment or what have you, to be my authentic self. I mean, that was one of the things that it all led back to fear, that I carried that massive trunk of masks and costumes, who do I have to be with this group, and oh wait, I'm going here, I have to be this person. And it was just exhausting because I had such a fear that if you saw who I was, you wouldn't accept me.
Right.
You wouldn't want anything to do with
me.
I was all I had.
I didn't like me either.
Right.
I didn't accept me either. Why should you? So, yeah. Okay, let's pick another topic.
Fear is a booger.
Yeah, let's throw that one away.
No, it's a good thing. It's good that we're getting into the. Oh, look! It's like I'm going to draw for the prize. Oh, I love this one. Friendship.
Oh, that's a sweet one.
Friendship.
Oh.
Yeah. I was never a good friend either. Before, because I always had ulterior motives. It was always about what is in it for me. And and I didn't have really strong bonds, friendships, because I didn't know how to be a friend.
Right.
I didn't know how to give. It's one of those things that you can't give what you don't have. So all of my relationships were superficial. And it wasn't until because I know this now. I didn't know this at the time, but it was either what do I need to get from you, or what are you trying to get from me? You know, it was never just what it was. And coming into recovery and the community that I'm in, it just is. And I had never experienced accepting someone just for who they were. And that sounds crazy, and it may sound, you know, real shitty, but that's just the truth. And if you look at yourself, I think and you're honest, I think you'll find the same thing, that, you know, what friendships do you have that there's just no holds barred, you know, and you can be your authentic self. It's so special to have those friendships that I have made in recovery, right. and which has made me a better friend for people that aren't in the program. Sure. Right. I mean, I think I scare the crap out of some people because I am just authentic, you know, raw. Authentically me. Yep. You know, and who's meant to, you know, who falls away is meant to fall away is kind of how I look at things. But I know how to be a friend now. And I never knew. I was in my 40s before I knew how to be a friend.
Yeah. Yep.
So what's your thing on friendship?
Well, you know, that I had some really good friends when I moved here, and I still have some good friends. But you know, my drinking cost me those relationships because I didn't want to answer the phone anymore. I was too drunk to answer, and so I went for a long, long time without returning phone calls. And then some people fell away, and then there were the people who loved me and knew me in anyway. And those people stuck. But, you know, I didn't know how to be a friend either. And I think what it took was me, people treating me like a friend. You know, like my sponsor, she knew how to be a good friend. And she showed me the way with that. But also, you know, I had to do a lot of self-examination. You know, I had to look at how those patterns of my life kept showing up, you know, in different relationships. And then just really deep diving into that. And working through that, and then accepting myself the way I am, and that has been a journey. I'm way better than I used to be.
I love how you said that, accepting myself, because if you're not accepting of yourself, you're not. It's almost like you're not going to allow other people to accept you.
Well, there's
not knowing that you're doing that. You know,
there's that basic feeling of trust.
Yeah.
You know, like, I don't trust that you really love me
because I know who I
am. And so I was always putting on that, you know, talking about different masks. I was always putting on that front. I knew how to navigate that really well. You know, being kids of alcoholics trained us well for that. Right. I could feel the room. I could get the temperature. And, you know, the problem with that is I would assign a lot of my stuff onto other people. And I still have a tendency to do that. My husband, you know, said that to me the other day. He's like, "You're telling me I'm feeling angry, and I'm not," you know. And I'm like, "Oh, it's my stuff." So, you know, a lot of projection. You know, a lot of trying to read between the lines, and there was always just this covert operation running. You know, you know what I mean? And so what I've had to learn is take people for who they are and what they say to be true. You know, say or do, whatever they say or do, just take it for face value that it's true, you know? And then, but I don't,
that's big.
But I don't have to base my feelings about them necessarily on what they say or do, you know? I may not trust them, but I don't have to be any different. I mean, you're good at that.
You don't have to let it affect you.
Right. And I have a lot more peace today, and I'm a little bit more centered than I used to be. But I have a high emotional intelligence and emotional
barometer.
Yeah. And I that gets me in trouble sometimes. And I've been wacky and I've been crazy in relationships and, all of those things. And I've acted out and I've been reactive and whatnot. But I think, it's been a process. It's been a journey of just getting to know myself and uncovering, discovering, discarding. That's really what it's been about. And these things aren't working for me anymore. It's keeping me from what I really want, and or from what God wants for me. I think He wants me to be happy. I think He wants me to feel connected to other people
and have friends and be a good friend.
And the connection is everything, but it did start with one person at that point, when I got sober. The other part to this is when I think about friendship, I think about, that time when I had to go to court and for mediation with my ex-husband over visitation. And I had every one of you ladies.
You were terrified.
Oh, I was terrified.
You were terrified.
And I was so scared of the outcome, really. And I, I prayed about it and I talked to God about it. And yet I felt like my reinforcements had shown up, and so you were there, several other people were there. And I felt like y'all were walking me into the courtroom limb by limb, just carrying me in there. And it gave me such a strong sense of belonging. It really made me feel like I belonged.
Right.
And that I was loved.
Well, and to feel genuinely supported.
Yeah.
Genuinely to have someone in your corner. We could say that all day long. I'm there for you.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. But it's where the rubber meets the road is, do you show up?
Right.
And just be
right. But I was very selfish and self-centered. I remember my friend Jane and I used to wake up in the middle of the night, around the same time, and I would call her or she would call me, and I remember one time I was probably I was probably 4 or 5 years sober, and she said, I said, she said, what are you doing? I said, I'm talking to God, and I'm praying to Him. And she said, I said, what are you doing? And she said, me too. I'm talking to God too. And I went, really? Like the epitome to me, that was like the epitome of my self-centeredness. Like, oh, God's talking to you too.
Right?
Like right now.
How can He be doing that? Because He's talking to me. Excuse me. Yeah. You're going to need to hang up with Him so that I can finish my conversation, please.
It's not possible. Yeah, because I'm taking up all His time right now.
I know I'm a full-time job for Him.
But, and I tell on myself in my group, I tell on myself that story because really that was how I was. And I can still be that way. Like, oh, there are other people in the world. Oh, there's like God is just as concerned for me about them as He is for me.
Ew, I don't like that.
I know, but
I think I'm one of His favorites.
And we have another member of the group who said to me one time, God is for the good of everybody concerned, not just me.
Right.
And so it's really.
Well, that's difficult to remember when you're in a situation where there's
where it could not go the way that you think it should go, and more often than not, it ends up better than the way that I think it should go. And so, I've had that experience.
Okay,
do you want me to draw one?
No, your turn.
Okay, I don't like. I don't know if I like me drawing.
Why?
Aloneness.
You keep drawing the icky ones, Jennifer. Aloneness.
Okay. Hey, I'm being honest about what I could make up a.
No. We're on video.
Aloneness, right? Aloneness.
Go ahead.
Oh my gosh, aloneness. I didn't know how to be alone, and yet I felt it all the time. I would be in a room, like we talk about, be in a room filled with people and feel alone. And it goes back to that connectedness that we were just talking about for me. And I think that has been something that, just being alone at night, in my bed when I was a single mom and my daughter would be away, and just sitting with that. But I feel like ever since I had that spiritual experience when I did my third step, and the obsession was immediately removed, I haven't quite felt alone. Like I haven't felt, I've been alone, but I haven't felt lonely to the point where I was.
Right.
And it really, a lot of it has been the fellowship, being a part of something bigger than me, being a part of, I couldn't just be with myself in my head all day,
It's a dangerous place to be.
It is. So
At
I don't
least
think
for
there's
me.
anything wrong with being alone. It doesn't scare me like it used to, but I didn't want to be alone. I mean, I would run to the bar, so I didn't have to be alone, and then I would proceed to, drink myself silly and, tell everybody my life story. Perfect strangers, my life story.
Feeling, I felt alone my entire life. Yeah. Until March 14, 2012. But I will say that I had an experience, which, more will be revealed kind of thing, this past February when I went up to the International Women's Conference of Alcoholics Anonymous was in Dallas this past February. And I was going to be a speaker at one of the meetings, and this was a lesson for me. There were supposed to be several of us women to go up, and so I thought, we're going up as a team. We're gonna all be together, and slowly several of them just kind of fell off and couldn't go, and so before I knew it, I was driving up there by myself, which is fine. I'm 53 years old and so I go, I was checking into the hotel, and I was like, I don't think I've ever checked into a hotel by myself.
Really?
So that was kind of and that was a fleeting thought. I thought, well, that's kind of weird, So I get, because Rick is usually he takes care of me. He just takes care of those things,
Sure.
And so I take care of that. And so the girls there's a couple of girls that are still coming. They're going to be late, but they'll be there. And so I head over to the hotel where the convention is being held, and I'm waiting downstairs. And so I'm starving, and I see the restaurant. So I go over there, and nobody is really in there yet. I mean, I was kind of early, and so the lady said, "Would you like to sit down?" I'm like, "Sure, get a glass of tea." And so I'm sitting there, and there's nobody else really, but slowly, people start arriving at the convention, right? Not my people, but people. And they start sitting down at this restaurant and ordering food. And I'm like, I'm freaking starving, but I was waiting. And so I get a text from the one of the ones that was supposed to meet me that says, I just can't make it. So I'm sitting in this restaurant by myself. I'm starving. And it occurs to me that I have never sat in a restaurant by myself and had a meal.
Right.
And I text Rick, and I said, okay, I'm just going to come home. I'm just going to come home. I can't do this. What do I do? And he's like, you're fine. You're okay. You're hungry, right? And I'm like, yeah, I'm hungry. He said, order something to eat. And I thought, I sat there thinking, every single human being in this place is looking at me thinking you're a freaking loser. Yeah. Nobody wanted to even come with you. That's how much of a loser you are, that they won't even sit at a table. I mean, all of this is not that specific, but I remember just feeling so tiny.
Mm-hmm.
I felt so small.
Yeah.
So I ordered some food with this lady that was very sweet to me, the waitress, and so I ordered the food, and she brought me my tea. And I look up, and this lady is walking by. She has this little book bag with her, and she stops in front of my table, and she looks at me, and she said, "Is anybody sitting here?" And pointed to the chair across from mine at my table.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, "No." And she said, "I don't think I've ever had a meal by myself.
Oh, wow.
Can I sit down with you?" And I'm like, "Girl, you better sit down in that chair. Sit down. Well, of course, you can sit with me if you'd like.
Right.
I was just going to have a meal. I mean, it was one of those things, but it was right then. I thought I was going to cry.
Yeah.
And I texted Rick, and I'm like, "Oh, my gosh, I'm making a friend. Wait, I'll tell you all about her," And because I just thought, that is God doing for me what I couldn't do for myself.
Yep.
He allowed me to sit in it for a minute. I didn't bail. I didn't run. And then he sent me relief. Is how I saw it.
Yeah.
And so she was delightful. She ordered a meal. We had a meal together, and it gave me the courage to continue for the next 2 days, which, intermittently a couple of the girls came and was at several of the meetings. But for the most part, I did that thing all by myself, and I was so proud of myself.
Yeah, I'm proud of you too.
I love you for that. But it just gave me, I don't know what it gave me. It gave me courage.
You walked through the fear of it.
Yeah. Whereas usually what I wanted to do was get in my car, drive back to Waco, and just be safe.
Yeah.
And I didn't.
But you also reached out because you texted me too, and then I sent you a really cute video.
I know we did. We did have you. I think you were brushing your teeth, you weirdo. But I not only the things that I got from that.
Yeah.
I just talked about. I think I just talked about, or maybe I talked about it yesterday. The women's conference that I just spoke at on this past Sunday. I would have never. That's how I was invited, was because I was at this other place.
Right.
So all the things that I would have missed out on had I not.
Yeah. One thing led to another, and some good
And
things came out of it.
And it's if you
can do hard things.
If you're okay with yourself, and you have people that.
And so, how did you get there? How did you get to that point where you were okay with yourself?
Working a recovery program. Yeah, it took some. I had to take the stairs, if you will. I mean, it took a lot of work.
Yeah,
it took a lot of work. And realizing and working through the fear. When I know me and I'm okay with me, what you think about me is irrelevant.
Right.
I mean, I want you to like me. I want you to hang out with me. But if you don't, I'm okay.
Right.
And I never had that before. I never had that before.
Me either.
So I don't choose to be alone. There are times where I crave that. It's like, because
Yes.
I'm so extra as it is, I get on my own nerves.
Yeah.
But yeah, I prefer to be with other people, but I'm okay to be alone now.
I get in my head sometimes too, and I get sick of myself. Big time.
Okay.
Yeah,
Next
pick one.
Let's see how we are on time. We're doing good. Oh, we still got a good 15, 20 minutes.
Really? Wow.
I'm a deep dive.
Right.
Deep dive, y'all.
Yeah.
Let's go down to the bottom.
Don't do guilt.
You're in trouble now.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see what we...
What? Character defects.
Character defects.
We
I
need some
have
different
none.
topic. Oh my gosh, yeah.
Oh dear. Oh dear. Had you even heard the term? Well, no, you had.
I've been around a long time.
What is a character defect? I didn't even know what so I'm going to ask you, Miss Teacher
Oh my
USA.
gosh, yeah.
What is a character defect?
Well, grosser handicaps. I mean, there's other terms that I could use. Sin, I could use that, but I like character defects because it's not I don't know, it's softer.
We do try to find an easier, softer way, don't we?
We do. And so character defects, it's funny because, that has an awareness of that, like we're talking about, when you deep dive into your own history and your
patterns,
and you find out what you're doing in each of your relationships, then that pattern does emerge, and it's pretty easy to see some of those defects of character. Trust is I have difficulty with trust, and I also had difficulty with being honest with people. And I had because I want to make myself look better than what I am. And I did, and envy, jealousy was one of my defects.
That's a good one.
Yeah. And so it was like, well, that's a hard thing to face. It says, what I was taught was that you give yourself over to your higher power and you let him kind of sort that out. Let him use what he can use in you. And I do think some of my character defects, like I can be a little bit rebellious and stubborn. And I think sometimes he used that to my advantage, and to his advantage. I think I've talked about this before, but, that night that my ex-husband wanted me to drink and he was putting whiskey in my face, and that rebelliousness in me was so strong.
Saved you. Yeah.
It saved me in that moment. And I was like, I wasn't feeling vulnerable. And, it would have been an easy thing to do to join him and to get right back where we were, before, or so I thought. But that had been removed from me. I didn't have a desire, and honestly, I was so pissed that he would want me to drink, knowing how hard it was for me to get sober. That and he knew my disease. That I was just in that moment, I could say, I'm not doing it. Screw you. I'm not doing it. And but I remember that anger welling up in me in that moment, and so that saved me. I didn't have a problem with it that moment.
Well, doesn't a certain prayer that we pray says, you can have all of me, good and bad, to use as you see fit.
Right, and I think when there's an honest desire to just, I really come to the end of myself a lot. Like even still, I'm like, I'm so sick of me and what I'm thinking, and I've got to, just surrender, just let it go.
Right.
And so, God, you're just going to sort all that out. I'm just going to leave all of that up to you. It's your problem to solve, not mine. And I'm just going to do the next right thing. And a lot of times I feel like my job is just doing the next right thing.
Right.
And to be as honest and open and willing as I can be. And sometimes I mess up. I mess up a lot, and I have to go back because I have a guilty conscience. It's like, okay, I did that wrong. I know I did that wrong. I could have done better there. And I go back and I have to clean it up. Doesn't take me as long to do that. But I'm not squeaky clean. Despite what it looks like, I don't, I'm not, fully rendered white as snow.
Right. Well, and I don't think he renders us white as snow. At least I didn't feel rendered white as snow, and I still don't. And because if I were that person who's still suffering that comes into our lives, we wouldn't be able to relate to.
Right.
So that's where he, and again, my high power, who I choose to call God, for me, God can use my experiences, good and bad, for his use to help someone else.
Right.
That is my primary purpose, and that is what I pray remains my primary purpose until the day I die.
Sure.
Is to have that all of that bad be used for good.
Right.
And I'm willing.
Yeah.
The
other thing that stands out in my head that my sponsor would say to me is, let them off the hook. Let them off the hook. And I started to do more and more of that to other people. And I think what it's done is to allow me to do it for me too. Like sometimes I just let myself off the hook. It's okay. It's okay. You messed up, you're going to try it again, And so I know there's a different way. I don't have to, I really don't have to crucify myself or, rake myself over the coals like I used to. Not that I'm not hard on myself, because that is one of my character defects, is being too hard on myself.
And that's another thing. Yeah, that's another thing you can't give away unless you have it.
Right.
If you're not doing it for yourself,
Right.
you don't know how to do that for someone else.
Yeah, yeah.
Or you don't have the capacity to do that for someone else.
And it's so funny how God puts people in my life and makes me very aware of, like, oh, I didn't even know I had that character defect, So I was calling somebody out, sponsee, I was calling her out on being sarcastic, and then I proceeded to be sarcastic for the rest of the day.
Well, it didn't count for me.
Yeah, right. So, it's like, oh, okay, I see. I have that potential to do all of the things.
And you've got me, the great enabler, where I was like, okay, well, yes, you were sarcastic, but was it truthful?
Yeah. Were you being honest?
Right. Because if it's truthful, then maybe it's okay if it's sarcastic.
It's rationalization.
Well, rational lies.
Yeah. So, so I figure God's going to use whatever I give him. If I want to keep it and roll around in it, that's fine too. But then,
and you get the consequences.
I do, and it usually,
and everybody around you gets
it costs me a relationship, in some way or another. And I choose not to do that today.
Okay, let's do one more.
I don't
well, I just picked a crappy one. It's not a crappy one. Okay. I take that back. Yes, I take that back.
Prayer.
Oh,
yay!
That's a good one.
That's a good topic to end on. Prayer.
That's a good one.
Really.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. Prayer. I do it every day and many times during the day. I have found that it is. Coupled with meditation, it has given me a lot of peace, and I didn't even know that I needed serenity. I mean, I didn't know that I needed it. I know that sounds crazy, but it really, it's like, can really everything be whittled down to just having peace or humility?
Right.
Can it be that simple? Is that the answer? And it's improved. So like I talk to God, not in a formal way. Sometimes I do. Sometimes I, there are specific things that I say or pray, but I just, when I was young, I remember when I was younger, growing up, there were several prayers that I would memorize, and I would say those at night, and when I would be alone in my bed, and I was afraid all the time, and I would say those prayers over and over, and the Serenity Prayer was one of them.
Oh, really?
Yes, it was, and yet it didn't relieve me of the fear it felt.
Well, because you didn't have a relationship with the person that you were talking to.
So what I have found is that I do like the prayers that were given, but I find more of a connection when I just talk to God and ask him questions and try to listen. That's the kind of prayer that I do in meditation, because I need something. My higher power has to be real. He has to be a friend. He has to be loving and kind. And be available, there was a lot of neglect in my house. I was neglected, a lot of times. But I've had to build a God. You've talked about build a bear,
right?
Build a God with, and put those things in that I needed from Him. And then as I've studied other texts, I found that He's that and way much more. And so my concept of God has improved, and gotten much bigger. I didn't have a God big enough to sustain my sobriety for 15 years.
Right.
So and I say that often, that if I had the God now that I had back then when I first started, I wouldn't be sober today. He had to grow with me. And I absolutely had to know that He had my back and that I could trust Him. And that's been over time, but it's also been with spending that time with Him.
Right.
And I mean, I've had periods in my sobriety where I didn't pray at all because I was feeling rebellious, or I don't know, I just didn't want to, I'm angry, whatever. And then I would find myself more in fear. Like I would be in fear most of the day, and it would start oozing into my relationships. And so what works for me is to start every day with prayer. And I've got my daughter and my husband, and we all sit around, we do our little reading for the day, and then we do a 5-minute meditation. It's amazing. Just great. And she'll ask me, Josie, she'll ask me, Mom, are we going to do our 5-minute meditation? I'm like, yeah. So I set the little timer, and we all sit quietly and meditate. I don't know what they're doing, but I mean, we're doing it. And so there've been other times where I meditated twice a day. And, so I mean, it's changed over time, and it's been different in different seasons of my life. But the one thing I do is maintain contact with my higher power, because, he's the director of my life.
Right.
He's everything. I don't know. I know less. I wasn't even nervous about today because I realized one thought, and that was, I don't know anything.
Right.
Really, the more sober I am, the less. I mean, and people say that, but it really is true. Like, I don't really know anything.
I'm waiting for a postcard that says, "Dear Christine, you don't know shit. Love God." Because I prove myself wrong.
Yeah. All
the time.
Yeah.
And he shows up. And see, for me, it's almost uncomfortable when I'm with other people and we say a prayer and they say amen, because I rarely say amen. My conversation never stops with, it's like every now and then I think he sets the phone down and goes and does the laundry and then comes back and goes, yeah, okay, yeah. Oh, really? That happened. Tell me more. And puts the receiver down and goes, but I have a constant dialogue, and and I love what you're talking about. I think that for me, and I call my morning time doing my paperwork. And it was because of we have 5 kids, and it's like I do my paperwork in the morning. Please don't disrupt me. I have got to build that foundation for the day, because otherwise me and everyone around me is in danger. So Rick and he came along with me as well, just like yours, to where he'll sit in his side of the room, I'll sit in my side of the room, and I just seek. It's like, what do you want to tell me? And see, for me, and that's one of the topics we'll get to at a later session, meditation. For me, prayer is talking to God. Yeah. And meditation is listening. Absolutely. Right? Which I never
didn't do that part. Left that part out.
Very seldom listen to anybody, let alone pause and because the relationship. I want a relationship. I don't want religion. No. I want, and a relationship is a two-way street. Yeah. If my relationship with my husband was just me talking, Which, okay, Rick Cohen, if you're listening to this,
He's
don't you dare email me. But
Yeah.
if it's talking and listening, it's a two-way street, and it's no different than when you have a relationship with a higher power, you can talk all you want, but God's not a vending machine. You don't just go push buttons and get or he's not a genie. You make a wish or a 911
He's not the
God.
parking lot God,
Right.
or the parking space.
It's a relationship. To me, it's like an adventure to try to listen, especially when I have something to say, and he just always shows up, just always shows up. And there's
sometimes immediately.
I know, right?
Yeah.
But it says in a bigger book, if you will, you don't have because you haven't asked.
Right.
And God is a gentleman. He will not go where he is not invited, and he will not take something away from you that you are not freely willing to give. And I just have to build that foundation, start that foundation every single morning, because when I go to bed, it crumbles.
Yep.
One of the very popular prayers is, give us this day our daily bread, which is not yeast and flour. It's bread is what we need, sustenance. It's what whatever we may need. It's give us this day our daily bread. And it's so, this 24 hours is all we got, kid, I mean, and so I want to build a foundation that's strong enough to support whatever is thrown at me.
Sure.
Prayer, man, because I was that person who would go, oh, I'll pray for you.
Oh, I did,
and
too.
I didn't no more give you the another thought, let alone actually try to talk to God about you. Yeah. That was just something you said because it was a nicety.
Yeah,
I was that person. Yeah. But I can guarantee, gosh darn to you right now.
Stop right then.
If
Do you
I
stop
say
right
to
then?
you, if I say to you, if it's not right then you can guarantee that I have spoken to God about you. If I say I'm going to pray for you, so don't you dare say I'll pray for you and not do it, because I think that God will take some of the lumber away from your mansion in heaven or something.
It's kind of nice when like family members will say, hey, would you pray for so-and-so?
Yes.
Because I know that you'll do it.
Yes.
And I'm like, that is
because I will.
Well, because I will do it. Like what a gift
that
they trust me to do what I'm going to say that I'm going to do. So I mean that.
And they see that you have a connection that.
Well,
it's like I know,
and they can
you
too.
Have a,
They can too.
I know you have God's phone number. Could you use it and say put in some good words for me?
Do you do it on your knees? Do you pray on your knees?
It depends. I certainly have.
Oh yeah.
If it's something that if it's a let me put it this way, if it's a situation that takes me to my knees, I take advantage of that. Yeah. Being down there.
Yeah.
Let's put it that way.
Well said.
But and I don't think that God is impressed with flowery language.
Nope.
It's just bless the piggies and the duckies and the and Daddy help. Has two words has been some of my prayers. Yeah. Daddy help. Kind of thing. But prayer is a huge part of my sanity.
It's interesting when I've gotten on my knees, it's like you're talking about. It's been that situation where it was a huge problem, and I just had to give it all over, like everything all over. And within 24 hours, within a couple of days, he comes back with an answer. Okay, so I have a question about something that's come up before. God box.
I had one when I first got sober.
Yeah, tell me about that.
I had one, and a God box is just that. You find any type of a box. I mean, hell, get a shoe box if that's like we used to make our old Valentine boxes. Whatever you got to do. Yeah. But you can get as fancy as you want. But what you do is if you have a burning prayer, a burning desire, as we say sometimes, you write it down, and when you put it in the God box, you're theoretically, you're supposed to be giving it over to God and not carrying it with you anymore. So because I didn't know what that meant, I needed the physical action of writing it down and putting it in so that my mind's eye could be trained to go, oh, that's what it means to give it over,
surrender.
you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kind of like waving the white flag.
There you have it. Yeah. So I don't really use one anymore. I have one.
Yeah.
And I have never gone back and looked at what I've put in there.
Yeah.
No, I've never gone. I know you have. You like looking at what's you're getting
you know
for
what's
Christmas
no,
too.
no,
I bet.
No, you know what? I don't add a lot to it anymore.
Yeah.
I don't use it anymore because I really hit my knees.
Right.
For something that's, I'm like,
It took practice to learn how to give things
here
over.
it is, and you take it.
Right.
But it was that physical manifestation, you know, and so
The action
of the physical. And but I'll tell you, I found 2 prayers, and I don't know why it was like on an egg shape. I don't even remember writing it, and it had to have been 20 years ago, where I wrote 2 specific wants, and one was to find a man who is a godly man who I can share my life with, and the other was to have a child.
Well, guess what?
I know, and I got both of them.
Right? You
and
did get both of them.
and I got so much more. I have plus. I didn't mention this last time, but I have plus kids too, and grandbabies, and I love that. But God has been so good and has given so much.
Right.
But here's the thing. That was my hope. But I didn't trust that he would fulfill that.
Right.
Or I didn't trust myself that I was capable of even having that. You know what I mean? And I'd find a way to mess it up. And then I look back and it's, it's a dream come true. And I never stopped hoping at some point that would happen.
Right.
And so even when I wasn't in sobriety, it's just crazy.
There's something that I do with my family every Christmas. We have a white stocking that is hung on with all of the kids' stockings, and there's a framed little thing that I have sitting there that basically the gist of it says that what are you thankful for this past year, right? And the only gift that Jesus, because we're obviously celebrating his birth at Christmas, only gift he wants is things that you need to give away.
Wow.
And so you can write down, character defects, which, the rest of the family doesn't necessarily, I don't have to use that verbiage, but it's like, have you had fear? Have you had anger this year? Have you had depression? Have you had anxiety? What have you had that has been not great for you? Because that's what Jesus actually wants for his birthday. Yeah. So I have thank you cards right there by those. Wow, and so on cool. their own, each kid can get one or not, whatever they want to do. And they can go in private and write it, seal it, and put it in the stocking. And then the following year, they are able to open it if they choose. It's awesome. Still in the stock. I pack it away with the stocking. And so it's a cool little thing that you can do with your family too, the white stocking. And you can probably Google it and find the cool story or saying or whatever it is that I have framed. That's where I got it. Was really from the
awesome.
Intraweb. Yeah, it's just a good little.
I would want to give away my old roof.
Yeah,
it's got hail damage on it.
Crap.
I'll put that in there.
There you go. Well, thank you. This was kind of fun. It was just an idea that
can we take those and not put them in the next?
We're gonna store
if we
those.
Do this again,
we're gonna store those, and then once we've done all of these, we'll replace them and start over. Because I have no doubt we'll have new stories to tell.
I'll leave it to me to start with fear. Anyway, that was fun. I enjoyed it. Thanks for having me again.
Well, and thank you for the sponsorship of the show.
Yes, ma'am.
Again, thank you for joining Purpose Driven Sobriety. You can find. I'm going to plug the merchandise again. Please find us on Facebook and give us a follow and share. With anybody that you think could benefit from listening. I'm very grateful. So thank you so much.
Yay.
Thanks for listening to Purpose Driven Sobriety. Keep coming back.